Dear viewers, I'm the Hungry Therapist and I love to cook. I'm a therapist by day and a wannabe chef by night. I work, I cook, I travel, and I obnoxiously yet proudly call myself a gastro-tourist. And I eat. Cooking is therapeutic. It's my stress release. It brings me joy and I share that with the people I love. Now I want to share that love with others. Here's how it works. You send me a question and I will respond with advice in the form of a recipe, as well as some advice sprinkled throughout the episode. Now the whole point of this is for you to cook alongside me, so be sure to check the episode descriptions on YouTube so you can grab your ingredients and we can cook together. Welcome to Advice with a Side of Rice. Dear Rasha, basically, I hate working. I hate the actual process of going into work and being there all day. I don't necessarily like my job either, which doesn't help, but it's tolerable. I've worked many different jobs in several different fields, and it's always the same thing. Super excited at the start, and within a few weeks, I'm looking for any reason to call in sick. My question is, what kind of advice would you give for someone like me who's already in their 40s, who truly doesn't believe that there's a job career out there that they would not despise? From I Hate Work. Dear I Hate Work. Well, I do have a few different suggestions for you, and I also want you to know that you're not alone. This is actually a very common feeling that people have. So let's try to see what we can do together. From Rasha with Love.
Disclaimer, this is for entertainment purposes only, does not constitute medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek advice from your doctor and mental health professionals. By sending an email to rasha.with.love@outlook.com, you are acknowledging this is lighthearted, for entertainment only, and are agreeing for your emails to be used on this channel and IGTV.
Hello! Why did that remind me of the movie phone guy? Sorry, that's a joke for the geriatric millennials like myself and older.
Hello, and welcome to Movie Phone. If you know the name of the movie you'd like to see, press 1.
Remember me? It's been a while. I'm Rasha, the Hungry Therapist. This episode is about a year late, so I'm wondering if the person is still having the same issue, but by judging the email, unless something really like drastic changed, then I think this is an issue that I can still address. And if it's not an issue, then you'll enjoy a good meal anyways. It's also, this is something that a lot of people feel, so I think it's good to bring up. Anyways, okay, so I'm gonna get into more of sort of the details while we're cooking. But I just want to say, because this seems like this is an ongoing problem, so I don't want the focus to be so much on the work itself. I want you to focus more on the good things outside of work and the fun things outside of work. So you're gonna get a little spoiled. You're gonna spoil yourself, and we are going to make beef Wellington. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so gather your ingredients here. So get your drink. Cheers. Okay, you have your beef tenderloin, aka filet mignon, because you're being fancy and you're spoiling yourself. We're gonna leave this out, so don't put it back in the fridge because you want the steak to get to room temperature before we actually cook it. If you cook it when it's cold, it kind of shocks the muscles or the tendons or something, and it makes the steak toughen up. So you want it to get to room temperature, so leave it about 30 to 45 minutes. Same with the puff pastry. We want to let it thaw out. So we're gonna leave these two babies here. You're gonna need some prosciutto for the 1 piece. We'll figure out how much after. Okay, a potato, because we're doing not mashed potatoes, pureed potatoes. So you're also gonna need some butter with that. English mustard. Now I can't seem to find English mustard anywhere, so I'm doing Dijon. And then we have some asparagus. We have mushrooms. Now to my dear writer, you're not a big fan of mushrooms, so I'm doing the recipe in a different way because you're okay with them as long as they're not too diced up. So I'm gonna do them that way, or you can just skip the mushrooms altogether. You don't need to do mushrooms. And I have about 3, 4 cloves of garlic. Okay? Okay, so I'm gonna put the prosciutto back in the fridge. Let's start with cutting up these mushrooms. So, and you can cut them as, I mean, we don't want them too big because we want to wrap it up nicely. So cut them as small as you can go. Okay, so work. I don't like the work culture here. I know it's similar in a lot of countries too, where like work is supposed to be the main priority and you like, you know, give up days off and give up time with family and friends to work late, and then on the days that, you know, we can do something, we're usually too tired. It's not, we don't have a very healthy work-life balance at all, and I think the culture is extremely toxic. We are always on demand, and then add on top of that, that everyone basically has access to us now on our social media platforms, on our phones. If you don't respond to someone right away, people get offended. So it's just, I just feel like there's a lot of demand placed on us, and just, yeah, I just think it's a terrible work culture. So the first thing I would suggest is, while you're figuring out, you know, what you want to do or what you want to change, or, you know, how you want to deal with this issue. Oh my god, I forgot what I was saying. Why do I always do that? Oh, okay. So the most important thing to do is to set important boundaries. You need to have boundaries, because if you decide to stick with the current job, or even if you end up in another job, and then because you said that the same thing tends to happen often, so, you know, so you need to have boundaries so that your work life is completely separate from your personal life, and that you're actually finishing at a reasonable time, so that after work you're not too exhausted to actually do things that bring you joy, or that help you unwind or connect with people in meaningful ways. So that's probably the first thing, as I would say, is make sure that you're trying to have a healthy work-life balance. And I want you to focus more on the things outside of work than the things that are actually in work. Okay, by the way, I'm doing about 5 mushrooms for myself. They're these little cremini mushrooms. I think that's how they're pronounced. Okay. So the other thing I was thinking about is, so I know this is an issue with like every workplace you've had, where you get, you know, excited and looking forward to a job, and then after a few weeks you just don't like it and you don't want to work there anymore. So I'm curious, is this feeling of boredom or wanting to move on, is this strictly work related, or do you feel that in your personal life as well? So for example, like relationships. When you enter into a romantic relationship with someone, do you find that you get bored easily and you're kind of looking for something new? Or with friendships, or yeah, anything kind of where you make a sort of like a commitment, basically. Because then I'm wondering if there's a pattern and more of something of a habit that you need to break, where you're really not appreciating the things in life and you're kind of looking for something that's not realistic. Because then that's sort of a whole other issue too. And if you don't really address that and kind of work on the root cause and work on how to change that and change your mindset so that you do appreciate things and people more, you might end up not being a very happy person, and then you won't be fulfilled. You won't have a lot of fulfillment with certain things, you know, even outside of work. So I want you to kind of think about that and figure it out, because if it is just about work, then that's fine. You want to make sure that you're fulfilling your other things. If it is sort of an all over, you know, feeling that you have in different aspects of your life, then I think this might take a little bit of time for you to resolve. You did mention that you get excited. I don't know why my music stopped. You did mention that you got excited, or that you do get excited kind of at the beginning of work, but then you sort of get bored. So what are the things that you are excited about? Are you excited for a new challenge? Are you excited to meet new people? You know, and what are your expectations going into the new jobs? And how does the reality live up to your expectation of it? Because that's also another thing that a lot of people do. They'll have very, very, very high expectations for something, and it's not realistic, and then they lose interest and then find something else, and then also have very high expectations, and then just the same pattern repeats over and over. So I think this is more, you have a lot of thinking to do. Okay, so if you do decide to stay at your workplace, or if you end up in the same situation again in the future, here are a couple of things I think you can do to make work tolerable. And I do want to remind you that also our job doesn't have to be our identity and our personality. I know that happens in many cultures and in different countries too, where like our job is like basically defines us. But a job can just be a place where you go to work, you get paid, you come home, you forget about it. I mean, that's how it should be. Whether you like it or not, or fulfilling or not, is a whole other story. But you can just look at it as, this is something that I just have to do, and try to make the best of it. So when you think about the things that you appreciated the first few weeks at your job, I want you to think about what's changed. There's also things you can discuss with your boss. I think it's very important to have a good relationship and an honest relationship with employers, supervisors, etc. Try and think of maybe some suggestions and things that would make the day a little bit better, and talk to your boss about it. Something that might, you know, make the day more interesting, or switch things up. Maybe you can work from home sometimes. I know with COVID, that's been happening a lot. Some people love it, some people hate it, but it's also nice to have like both, and be able to go into the work sometimes and work from home sometimes, just a little bit of a change. And then So a lot of the times when we shift our focus on just the negative, that's the part that the brain will sort of associate everything with. So I want you to work on changing your mindset a little bit and having a little bit more gratitude towards the good things about your job, the fun things about your job. Let's say your boss doesn't care how many breaks you take, or the money's good, or benefits, or there's a couple employees you like. So think about those things, and I would actually even, and this is sort of the part where you're doing a little bit more work and not just thinking, but actually writing them down. So write it down, because writing is it's very powerful, and I'm not very articulate, but I will link in something that, you know, I've heard from some fabulous professionals that I completely respect, some mental health professionals, and Guy Winch, he's one of my favorites, so I'll include some of his advice on why writing is so important.
Now, some people say to me, I've tried it, it didn't work. And I'm like, you've made the list and you wrote the essay? No. I just thought about those things, and I thought about why they were important. And I'm like, well, you know, that's like saying I was hungry, so I thought about the food I had in my fridge. Turns out I'm still hungry. You know, no, you have to write the essay. You have to make the list, because making the list is like taking the food out of the fridge and cooking it. And writing the essay is how you eat it. It's how you absorb it. Your brain needs for you to think about it, to process it, to write it. That's how the message gets absorbed, because it's so obvious to us that we need to monitor our physical health. We need to monitor our bodies. That's very, very clear to us. But it's not clear to us at all that we need to monitor our psychological health.
But I want you to write down the things, even just one thing a day of what you enjoyed or appreciated about your day. And then I would like you to write, without saying it in a negative way, but saying it in a more positive way, as more of a want, something that would have made your day better. So like, you know, I wish I had, or I would have liked to have one extra break today, or I would have liked it if I had more banter with my coworkers, or I would have liked it if I had no banter with my coworkers. So just state a need, and in a positive way, not in a negative way. Not like, I need my fucking coworkers to shut the fuck up. So like, don't say it in a negative way, say it in a positive way. And it is really amazing the way we think about things and the way we repeat things. We have an ability to change and sort of rewire the way we think, and it does have a big effect on our mood. Okay, so I'm super slow. Are you like done your mushrooms and waiting? Sorry. Okay, I am done. Let me show you what my mushrooms look like. Okay, so they're diced, like they're pretty small. Pop these on here. Your asparagus, you can obviously make as many as you want. I'm gonna have 3 pieces. You can just snap it, because it'll snap it where you need to cut it, but I want it to have a nice clean cut. So I'm gonna cut with my knife. You just wanna try to get the like hard parts off, so you can kind of see where it bends. So like right over here, get rid of the tough kind of whitish part. Okay. And then the smaller garlic cloves, we're just gonna smash and peel them, but we're not gonna dice them. This is going to be for our potato. This is your garlic that we're going to add to the mushrooms. So just give it a little dice. As for trying to find a different way to earn money, if you just don't like working and, you know, you just don't want to work, which is fine. I think a lot of people can relate. Even like, I love my job, I love my work, but yeah, sometimes, you know, we all go through our days or months or weeks or whatever, or even just moments where, you know, this work is it's stressful most of the time. Even the best jobs, like I've heard, you know, musicians and actors, you know, hate certain things about their job, or like, you know, but they're lucky enough because they're super rich, so they can take they can take 5 years off if they want to. Most of us average people can't do that. But there are other things you can do. And it doesn't have, again, it doesn't have to be something you totally love. It could just be something where you have a little bit more control over your time, and kind of do it that way. So I have so much fucking respect for my boyfriend. He used to work, you know, for a company. I won't say which company, but he had a good job. He had a good position, but he didn't like that he had to work like certain hours, and you have to request time off, and you know, and you have to answer to someone. It's just, it wasn't for him. It wasn't for him, and I'm so proud of him because he quit and he went out and registered to become an Uber driver, and he put his place up on Airbnb, and those are his two main sources of income, and he does really well. And I've driven with Uber before, for Uber before, and it's actually, well, I found it a little bit stressful just because I'm really bad with directions, and I'm also, you know, a little paranoid, so I would be scared to go out at night, you know, get some drunk guys or whatever. But you know, it was pretty good money. But yeah, I'm not good with directions, but even though I got 5-star ratings for all my rides, so. But yeah, so he, you know, and that is an option. But again, you're not gonna like love it, but you know what? I have to make a correction here. You can absolutely love it. You work whenever the hell you want to work. You don't. And maybe my boyfriend takes 3 months off a year if he wants to straight, and then, you know, other vacations on the side. And you know, I am similar to you and to my boyfriend a bit too, because I am self-employed. I work with different companies, but I'm self-employed. But that, you know, I like having the freedom to work my own hours and schedule my own things, because I do, you know, our mental health is important too, and you know, deserve to have a life. So that stuff is something to think about. There's a bunch of other things that people can do that I don't know too much about, so I don't want to say anything. I changed my mind. I am going to say something. Okay, type in Airbnb Experiences in your Google search and look up all the different things that people are doing. So what is something you're interested in? Are you interested in true crime? Are you interested in, I don't know, whatever. But see how, if there's a way that you can turn that into like some kind of tour where you can do an experience and get paid per person to do these things. You know, something to look into. Are you good at making cocktails? You can do a cocktail session from your home where people learn different drinks that are unique that, you know, you can't easily find through a Google search, that's more hands-on. There's a few different things you can play with here, but do your research. Like, you're not going to be rolling in money quickly right away, but it's an option. So here I added my garlic, and I'm going to put in some fresh thyme just to give it a bit of flavor. Honestly, you can put in as much or as little as you want. It doesn't really matter. I like lots. So we're gonna work on the mushrooms first. So you're going to, actually let's preheat the oven first. So preheat the oven to 400 degrees. And then we're gonna cook the mushrooms in a dry pan. So you're not putting oil or butter or nothing. We're just gonna toss the mushrooms and cook them. When your pan's nice and hot, I would do like medium to medium high. Add in your mixture of mushrooms, garlic, and thyme. And then we're just gonna cook it through so that the water and the moisture evaporates, because you don't want to end up with soggy mushrooms, because then you'll end up with soggy steak and soggy phyllo pastry, so we don't want to do that. So you're just gonna keep cooking it till it looks like all the water has evaporated. And then you're just going to, once that's done, just set it aside and let it cool off while we continue with the rest of the stuff. And then just give it a little toss every once in a while and make sure it doesn't get burned. It should only take a couple of minutes. Actually, to be exact, mine took 4 minutes total. But you go based on what your stove is and when you see that the water's evaporated. I'm not going to make you watch 4 minutes of my bouncing camera, so I'm just going to end it here, but you can pause until yours is ready. For steak, I like coarse salt and pepper. So here I'm using coarse sea salt. And I'm adding fresh ground pepper. I like a lot. I like my things salty. So I do like a lot of salt and pepper. But if you don't like a lot of salt, don't be scared to use too much or more than you normally would, because you are going to lose a lot of it in the searing process. So don't be scared to, add more of those beautiful flavors. And we are going to keep it simple, just salt and pepper. Now, believe it or not, I actually trimmed this video because the amount of pepper I grinded is a lot. So, yeah, put a lot. Now you're going to grab the loin and roll it around and press it in. You want to try and get the salt and pepper to stick to the steak as much as possible. So roll it around or use your fingers and grab some of the salt and pepper and put them on top and then pat them in the steak. Whichever method works best for you. Just make sure it's nice and coated. And as you can see, we don't just do the top and the bottom, we do all the sides. Preheat your pan or cast iron skillets. I like cast iron skillets for this because they distribute heat evenly, so you get a nice even sear on your steak. And then you can also pop it in the oven after, so it's less dishes. But you don't have to, like a regular pan is fine. So put it on as high as possible without causing the alarms to get set off. Because what we really want to do is sear all the sides as quickly as possible, because we don't actually want to cook the steak. We just want to sear it on all sides and seal in all those juices from the steak. And, you know, be generous with the olive oil. When your pan is nice and hot, you want to add the steak in. And then I would set a timer. I think I did a minute per side, but then it wasn't enough. So I kind of played with it a bit. So I want you to judge kind of on your own. I think using a timer is important because you want it to be cooked the same on each side. So that way later on when we cut into our steak, you have a nice even coloring in between, and it's all, you know, depending on whether we screw it up or not, and it ends up being well done or medium or whatever, but that it's at least consistent. So we do that, and then we flip, and you want to get all the sides, so not just the top and bottom. You want to get, you know, the other 4 sides too, to make sure that it's nicely sealed, and then kind of, yeah, just go with your judgment on that. And for the people new to watching and haven't seen any of my other videos, and aren't familiar with me, I'm sorry that my directions are not so precise. It's actually usually because I don't cook with a recipe and I don't really follow recipes. I just kind of do my own thing and judge based on look, taste, and smell. So if there's someone who like needs to follow exact directions, I'm sorry. This might not be the best choice for you. But I do have this philosophy that cooking is supposed to be fun and experimental, and I really do believe that fuck-ups in cooking can actually result in something a lot better than intended, or it leads to a new recipe, or it leads to something interesting. And if you're in this deep and now you're like, oh shit, what have I done? Why did I commit myself to this? Then it kind of goes back to the beginning of what I was saying and our expectations of things. That, you know, sometimes we gotta kind of lower our expectations and go with the flow. And obviously, I don't mean that for everything. Like, you shouldn't have low standard for things, but this is something that's just supposed to be fun and not taken too seriously, and it's just trying something new that will, you know, if you get a good piece of meat, I think even if it's overcooked or undercooked, it's still gonna taste delicious. So regardless of whether you regret committing this long, I hope you enjoy the final result, and I really do think you will. While it's hot, brush the beef tenderloin with the mustard. You want to do it while it's nice and hot, because the mustard will get sucked into the steak while it's cooling, and you're going to have more of that beautiful flavor throughout the meat. Make sure to brush all sides. Be very generous. Don't be scared about putting too much. You can even add some horseradish if you want a little extra kick. Let that cool down uncovered on the counter. Let's roll some asparagus. Okay. So sometimes I even cut this in half like this, but we're indulging ourselves. So hold the tip, start from the top, and just start rolling it. Okay, I hope that was easy to see. Could you tell what I was doing? Maybe. Let me try. Why do I suck with cameras? Okay, let's try the other one. So I edited in a different video from another day just because I think you can see a little bit better view and can see more clearly. And then I can show you kind of a different way to roll it. It depends on what you find easier. I kind of go back and forth through different methods. As long as it's nice and tight, that's all that really matters. So now add in, drizzle some olive oil. Okay, just gonna rub them around in some oil. Okay, we're just gonna put these aside. Back to our Wellington. So you're gonna get some saran wrap and put it down on the counter. Then you're going to grab your prosciutto. Sorry for the bouncing camera again. I think that's my signature move. Okay. So we're going to place the prosciutto down. You want enough so that it completely wraps the steak. So I'm going to use 3 pieces. You might need to use more. So the purpose of this is to contain the juices of the beef that might come out, or that will come out during the cooking process. So the prosciutto's meant to keep them all there. So just make sure you have enough to cover it. And then add in your mushrooms, just kind of put them in the center there. Make it nice and even. Okay, then next you're going to add your beef right in the center there. And then we're gonna grab the saran wrap or cling wrap, and we're going to try to get a nice tight roll going, and you want to roll it around using the cling wrap and try to get it as nice and tight as possible. If it doesn't really work out so well the first time, that's okay. You can unwrap it and then do it again. Try and get it tighter. You're also going to go in from the sides too, because we want the whole steak to be covered. So now I've made some holes, as you can see right there. There's some parts that aren't covered, so I'm just gonna throw on top another piece of prosciutto or parma ham, and then try to get it nice and tight again. So check your steak, look to see if there's any holes that need to be filled, and then keep wrapping it, trying to get it as nice and tight as possible. Okay, I'm adding more because I don't like that there's too many holes. So, and that's okay. I mean, who doesn't love more prosciutto? It's just more beautiful flavor. Okay, so let's try doing that again and getting a nice tight wrap. Okay, try to shape it a little bit to turn it into the shape that you like. And then we're gonna pop that in the fridge for 10 minutes. While that's cooling, let's crack an egg into a bowl. Give it a good whisk. We're going to use that for our egg wash. Okay, I like to use a fork, but I find a fork easier to use, whisks better, and easier to clean than using a whisk. So I find usually when it starts to get like nice and bubbled, that's you can see those little bubbles there. That to me shows me that the whisking process is almost done. Okay, so while the potatoes are going, let's start working on our puff pastry. You're going to roll it out. I found it was sticking a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. I mean, I guess you can add a little bit of flour, but I don't think it's necessary, and I don't think I've seen anyone add flour. So anyways, just roll it out. You want to get it a size big enough to cover the entire Wellington, like the entire beef. So roll it out, flip it, try to get it as even as possible. And you want it thin, but not too thin. Like you don't want it to be so delicate. Once you get it to the size that you want, go ahead and grab the steak, prosciutto wrapped steak from the fridge. Unwrap that baby, and we're gonna put it right on the center. Add egg wash to the edges. This is gonna help it stay sealed and keep its shape. Don't put too much, just a nice little thin layer. And go on all 4 sides. Okay, now we're gonna wrap the puff pastry. Professional chefs, look away, or anyone who's done this before, look away. This is probably will give you anxiety, but I promise you, it's fine. And it'll cook great, and it'll taste great, and it will look great. So I'm not that picky with shaping it. I do have a little bit of a hard time getting it nice and tight. The tighter it is, the easier it's going to be to cut it. But, you know, it's going to turn out great still. I have faith, so just trust me. And now try to shape it so that it's a nice kind of shape. And then we're going to put it back into some cling wrap again, and you're going to use that to kind of help get the puff pastry a little tighter too. So that'll help giving it also a better shape. And we're going to pop that in the fridge for about 10 minutes as well. That's going to help it also kind of settle in and hold that shape. So when the 10 minutes are up, we're going to do another egg wash on the entire thing. Now, I actually forgot to film this part, so this is from another video. So you're going to see that the way I wrapped it looks a little different. But anyways, do the egg wash on both sides. And then you can add a pretty little pattern. So just use the knife to score it a little bit. You could do any design you want. Just be careful not to actually cut through the whole thing. So you can see I made a little mistake there and went too deep on one side. So you can always kind of gently put it back together, just so nothing leaks out. Pop that beauty into the oven. We're gonna let it cook for 30 minutes. Okay, so let's get started on our potatoes. Now, I'm doing you a favor by putting this on faster speed, because if you have to sit through the process of how long it takes me to peel and cut a potato, like, I really think that you will lose your patience. So speeding through this. So yeah, just However, 1 or 2 potatoes. I just did 1 for myself. Toss those in a pot with some garlic, add water, salt, and cook on high heat. I added a bit of thyme too. So we want to cook the potatoes till they're nice and soft and easy to smush. Once you get to that point, we're gonna strain them. You can just mash them, but I like a puree. Okay, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of butter, like that's probably a spoonful. And then add a little milk. Okay, so don't ask me why, instead of using my camera stand, why I decided to try to do this process with one hand. But anyways, there's me pureeing it. If you feel like it's not ready enough, or sorry, if it's too thick, add a little bit more milk. This is the consistency that you want to get. Cover it up until our steak is ready. When the steak is done, let it rest on the counter and put your asparagus in the oven. It shouldn't take too long to cook. We just want the prosciutto to get nice and crispy. Maybe like 5 minutes, not even. Once your Wellington is nice and rested, you can cut it in the middle. Now be very gentle. Mine kind of started to come apart a little bit, so be gentle, be patient, and well, this is why it's important to have the pastry wrapped really nicely. It still held its shape though, so I hope you don't have any issues with yours. It is a bit of a learning curve. But there you go, beautifully cooked, and just give you a peek on the inside here. Beautiful. Okay, and then plate your beautiful dish. I hope you enjoyed making this recipe, and I hope my advice got you thinking about different options you can take, whether you stick with your job or decide to pursue a different way to make money. But I do hope that you focus more on your life outside of work and enjoy that time. Best of luck to you. From Rasha with Love.
That's what Pablo said. I will give $20 million for the location of the DEA agent Steve Murphy. Look here. Yeah. This is when Pablo died. Is the next stop. Okay, Pablo's sons.